Okay, today we're going to talk about integers and absolute value. So the first part of your notes says you can write quantities less than 0 using blank numbers. And what we're going to put in there is negative, right? Temperatures can be below 0. You can owe money, like debt, which would be a negative number. So we can have negative numbers that are numbers less than 0. Numbers that are the same distance from 0 on a number line, but in opposite directions are, shocker, opposites. Okay, so if I go, this is 0, so if I go 4 places to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and land right here, I'm on positive 4. Well, what if I go 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left? Now I'm on negative 4. Negative 4 and 4 are opposites because they're the same distance from 0 on a number line but in opposite directions. So now we're going to talk about what makes a whole number and what makes an integer. Whole numbers are what we call like your counting numbers. Okay, the numbers that you learned when you were a toddler. Okay, like 1, 2, 3, 4, on and on and on. Okay, and then what are integers? It's whole numbers. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, and 4, on and on and on. And they're opposites. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. So whole numbers are the counting numbers, and then integers are all of those plus their opposites. Okay. Whew. Excuse me. Wow, sorry. So the next thing we have to talk about, is a number's distance from 0 on the number line is what we call its absolute value. Okay, it's how far away it is from 0 is its absolute value. And we denote that, or the symbol for that is like this. It's essentially like a jail. Okay, so if we have 6 in absolute value jail, that means that I'm asking you how far away is 6 from 0 on a number line. So if we were to think up here, we start on 0. If we were to count over to 6, it would be 6 places away from 0. Okay, look at this next one. What about negative 6? How many spaces away from 0 is negative 6? So if this is my number line, I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. Okay, it cannot be negative because you can't walk a negative distance, right? Distance is always positive. You can be going in an opposite direction, but it's still always a positive distance. Okay, so 8 on the number line, the absolute value of 8 is 8. What would be the absolute value of negative 8? That is also 8 because it's 8 spaces away from 0 on the number line. So what about negative 10? 10. What about 145? 145. What would be the absolute value of positive 15? 15. And what would be the absolute value of negative 24? Positive 24, right? It's always positive because distance is always positive. Okay, absolute value is always positive. Here, we can write that out. It's always positive because it is distance, right? It's how far away from 0 is that, and that's always positive. Okay, so let's talk about this next section. It says you can blank expressions that include absolute values, and that should say evaluate. So we can evaluate expressions that include absolute values. The absolute value symbol is a grouping symbol. So simplify inside them first. So yesterday when we talked about PEMDAS, right, parentheses and other grouping symbols is first. That includes absolute value. So on number 9, it says evaluate the absolute value of A, for A is negative 2. So what would be the absolute value of negative 2? 2. On number 10, it's the absolute value of 2 times b. So the absolute value of 2 times 4. So inside this absolute value, 2 times 4 is 8. And what's the absolute value of 8? 8. Okay, on number 11, it's 3 times the absolute value of c. So if c is negative 3.5, what's the absolute value of negative 3.5? Positive 3.5. So now 3 times 3.5 is 10.5. And then number 12, it's 10 plus the absolute value of negative 17. So what's the absolute value of negative 17? 17 plus the absolute value of b, and b is negative 3. So what's the absolute value of negative 3? 3. Now it's just addition left to right. 10 plus 17 is 27. 27 plus 3 is 30. Okay, number 13, we're going to put these numbers in order from least to greatest. If doing it on a number line helps you, then by all means do that. Okay, you always want to start with the biggest negative. Okay, like you have to think about it as like if negatives are something that you don't like to eat. Okay, like Brussels sprouts or squash or something, right? What is the biggest quantity of gross stuff? So look at this list of numbers. It would be this one, right? 129 steamed carrots, okay? Then which one would come next as the least, the smallest number? Negative 90, because that is the biggest negative. Next, negative 81, negative 67, negative 27, negative 11, negative 9, positive 14, right? Or think about it as we're going from the lowest temperature to the highest temperature. So negative 129 degrees, negative 90, negative 81, negative 67, negative 27, negative 11, negative 9, and then positive 14. Okay, and then let's look at this last one. Okay, so on this last example, okay, we're going to put these in order. So the biggest negative, right, the lowest temperature would be negative 1,000. Okay, then what would come next? Negative 18, and then negative 17, and then negative 12, and then 0, and then 7, and then positive 20. And we can look at our list one more time and just kind of make sure if this was how much money you had, right? You owe $1,000, you owe 18, 17, 12. Oh, I'm at 0. Now I have 7 and I have 20. So that's going from least to greatest. And then the last section is compare. So that's where we're going to use an inequality symbol like less than, greater than, or equal to. Okay, so what's the absolute value of negative 2? 2. What's the absolute value of positive 2? 2. So those are equal, right? What's the or this is just 15. And then what's the absolute value of negative 15? 15. So those are equal. And then this last one, we have negative 17 and positive 10. So the absolute value of negative 17 is 17, and then the absolute value of 10 is 10. So this is bigger. The absolute value of negative 17 is greater than the absolute value of 10.